Oh, I didn't bring my iPad this time.
Well, these,
Someone else has an iPad, don't they?
I was too
You got an
bad.
iPad?
I was too busy trying to learn Spanish on it.
How's that going?
Terrible. I think the program is good, but my ability to sit down and actually do it's terrible.
You're all pumped about it that first day. You're like, man, I'm going to do this every day. I'm
Yeah, I'm gonna
learning
wake up.
Spanish every day. I got my app set up. I'm ready to go. Next day, I was like, you do it? And you're like, no, I didn't do it.
This is his personality trait. Get very excited, get very motivated, lose interest in the details, move on to the next thing. Right?
It's true. It's true.
I share some of these
I have
character
to-
traits.
I would say
We'll talk about that on the next podcast if we do any more.
1 out of 10 ideas actually stick, but I start about 10 a week.
You got to spend $1,000 on equipment to keep you rolling.
Yeah, it's like I got to set up a weekly meeting with my friends, spend $1,000 on audio equipment, and then we'll make it happen. So.
Donde está la biblioteca?
So Joey Diaz, he's an actor. He's got a really funny story on YouTube.
Are we recording now?
Yeah. So like Whitney, I guess
You didn't even do any intro to the show.
we're not doing the show yet. This is the pre-show.
This is the warm up. This is the preamble.
We're warming up. Yeah.
Okay.
So Joey Diaz has got this awesome
You
story.
just start with 425 on the block.
That's right. Is that an inside joke? Did I say that before? What are you doing?
No.
That's a very specific thing you said. You can start with more weight than you think.
Some people can start with 425.
No,
I don't know if Chris can start with 425.
I'm confused about you.
That's a
Joey
solid
Diaz.
warm up weight for me.
So Joey Diaz, I guess he's got like this story about this 6-week period where he sold Whitney Houston and Chris Brown cocaine.
This sounds good.
They were in California, and he's like somehow got hooked up, and they're spending like $1,100 a day for 6 weeks on cocaine, and like every day he gets a phone call, and he finally put it together. It's like, oh, $1,100 is their per diem, so every day they're getting their per diem money, and they're going and blowing it on blow. So he would go into this house, and like he would buy $1,100 worth of coke. He would cut it, so he'd have some to take for himself. For anyone that knows anything about cocaine, when you cut it, you can make more with less. Anyways,
Cocaine expert, Mike Bledsoe.
yeah,
You mix it with confectioner sugar.
Yes, that's what I learned that from Cheech and Chong actually.
Yeah.
Ajax works well. So Jesus Christ. So he basically, anyways, he's got this 6-week story where he partied with him one time, and they had to get some more just to get to the Grammys. Interesting story in light of all the recent news.
Well, this is
He
a
said that like a week before that happened too. Which was weird.
this is a case of death. I don't think surprised me at all. I'm surprised she's not been long dead. She's always looked terribly, terribly high.
Any
Like the last
musician,
15
like
years.
any of these musicians are like, oh, they keel over and die from overdose.
But
Oh,
she would just sit on
okay.
stage just rolling with a profuse, unparalleled sweat. After like being on stage like 1 minute. And then the rambling in between lines. It was very obvious.
Oh, yeah.
But now,
really don't
sweet
pay
angel,
attention.
rest in peace.
Everyone get all caught up in
May
it.
your voice entertain the angels.
Yeah, I'm not gonna feel sorry for her one bit. So, for the record,
Heartless.
I'm a heartless bastard.
You started off by saying, "Oh, terrible news this week," but Whitney Houston, like you're a fan, like your iTunes catalog is filled with the entire Whitney Houston.
I'm not going to lie. I jammed the shit out of the Bodyguard soundtrack. I'm just going to put that out there.
So Lucas posted something really good on his wall, which was a Chinese kid singing "I Will Always Love You."
Oh.
Probably better than Whitney Houston ever did it.
Yeah,
And I
I've
thought
seen
that was
that.
pretty good. And so I posted on his wall.
Boy, Chinese can do everything.
Hey, if he can sing better than her, he could probably hold his crack better than her too. So.
Too soon.
Yeah, you went over some sort of line there.
Sorry. Not really.
And that leads us into
Barbell Shrug.
Barbell Shrug. Do your little introductory swag.
All right,
Barbell
guys.
shrugged, shrugging barbells, talking about stuff and doing the stuff. Episode 3, Volume 1.
That was just Chris Moore with the musical intro. I'm Mike Bledsoe. We have Doug Larson here as well. And our guest, Brad Pope. He's supplement industry extraordinaire
Something like that.
/ expert. So, Brad.
Yep.
As our guest, we have questions prepared for you.
I
Okay.
wouldn't say we were really prepared. So
It's a bit of a stretch.
you work in the supplement industry. Well, I don't know how deep in the details you really want to get. So you can kind of maybe put your little disclaimer out there for us.
Dip your toe in the water, see how it feels, and we'll get going from there.
All right. Yep. Out of grad school, me and some friends got involved in the supplement industry. We started initially kind of selling and, doing this, like being involved in the supplement industry. And then later we were kind of consultants for other people and analysts on how to move products, kind of reverse of the way that you would traditionally do it. We started moving products out of the United States instead of into the United States. So, typically when you have a supplement company, they're sourcing materials from most of the time China. Sometimes, if it's easier to get geographically in another part of the world, they'll pull them from there. But we started producing here and moving to China. And the reason we did that is because, everybody knows China is kind of up and coming and has a middle class growing. And, as that middle class grows, they're becoming more concerned with health and beauty products, which is where our niche market was when we started moving in. And so we kind of ran with that for a couple of years. And, now we consult with other companies to kind of help them get their products to that market and fill that niche.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is a natural side effect of you spend less time working rice paddies and slaving away, and you have more income and time to worry about wrinkles and
That's correct.
and vitamins. And
100%
We're
correct.
starting to have the same first world problems we have.
That's right.
you start going, where can I get my shark fin concentrate?
You have that is so unbelievably accurate that you have no idea, Chris Moore. There.
So you're not selling anything like we would normally buy. You're not selling creatine and fish oil. You're selling more obscure products like he's suggesting.
Now they do
It's
some
not obscure for the Chinese.
some things that are
If you got shark fins or fucking bear prostates or something, they're all over, right? I mean,
yeah. Some things that have caught on in kind of the Western supplement industry, like fish oil is pretty big over there, and alternatives to fish oil like krill oil because of the mercury content of the fish native to China or whatever. But as far as the bodybuilding stuff that traditionally people, pick up over here, it's really not there in China, and so their market is completely different. Most of it is based off of Chinese medicine is based kind of on, I would call it homeopathic, maybe. That would be a pretty generous description of it, I guess.
Mostly, mostly anecdotal.
Yeah, a lot of anecdotal. It's not all hocus pocus, but some of it definitely is. Just like some of the bodybuilding stuff here is definitely scientifically quote unquote based hocus pocus. But over there, it's just kind of a more traditional role of medicine, I guess. I guess they look at it like homeopathic internal medicine, and that's what their supplement industry is kind of based around.
Or whatever their father's father took for toe fungus.
Exactly right.
Or for a urinary tract infection, he suggested to you.
Right.
Hey, I drank, this root extract juice tea, and I felt better. So, hence, this is a cure for that.
Right. And now they've gotten into this weird state where they like kind of a hybrid where, we like this extract that's been part of our culture for generations and generations and generations. But what really drives sales is when you have the traditional remedy that's backed up with even a modicum of scientific evidence. And so then it's like, we've known this for years, but now it's confirmed by science, and it's just flying off the shelves when you find a situation like that from a marketing standpoint.
So you've been involved in trying to find some scientific evidence to back up some of the claims of some of these supplements, or
Sure. That in the nice cases, in other cases, it's more of a challenge of how to market things in that direction, regardless of whether or not, just to keep it real, trying to figure out a way to meet that marketing demand, regardless of whether or not the product actually qualifies.
Right.
So I think we were talking, or you guys were talking the other day about Honey Nut Cheerios on your last blog. So trying to find,
fucking delicious.
Right. Trying to find some way to correlate, what this extract does in the same way that Cheerios tries to correlate fiber to, their product.
Yeah. Well, if you gave me an hour and said tie A to B, and hey, here's your net connection, go on PubMed, see what you can find, you can do it.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
And that's the good thing and the bad thing about evidence is that there's a lot of it, but you can cherry pick the shit out of it.
Absolutely.
Like we said last week, 100 studies on compound A would probably get you going. One study is of note but useless. Sure. And any sort of error or bias or a missed decimal point, screws all those results up.
Go ahead, Brad.
It's really interesting. A lot of the problems are the same that plague both industries. You have problems with the American supplement industry, just like you have problems with the Chinese industry. And the Chinese industry is just sort of like the Wild Wild West. I mean, you could show up with a box of snake oil and be like, hey, this is ancient Chinese
This
cobra.
also unregulated over there?
I mean, they have a regulatory body, but we have the FDA, and supplements are largely unregulated here.
I may forget how it shook out, but like at my work, we all got a little nervous when the stories of what China did to the guy who should have been the one protecting the population from that milk incident. They found, what was that chemical they found in milk? There's some sort of toxic substance in
it
milk.
starts with an M too.
Yeah, but apparently the guy who was in charge of making sure that didn't happen, I think he was executed.
Probably.
I think the government said, you have screwed up, and the penalty for this is death. And we're like, oh boy, we have a regulated product going to China.
Oh yeah.
So I wondered, wow, American companies putting in compounds, how does the government? I mean, maybe now they're so focused on this weird, bizarre capitalism that got going on. Like, hey, if it makes money, let's do it.
Oh sure, and that's a pretty the milk thing was pretty egregious. A lot of people died, and some kids died, and
can't be overlooked.
That's very different than having a supplement that doesn't do what it says it does on the label. In the Chinese government.
So I hadn't heard about that at all. They were adding a compound to milk and it killed people.
No. Somehow the milk, there's the same thing that happened with raw milk. The reason that raw milk is outlawed in a lot of states is because, pasteurization, there's something to be said for pasteurization and removing, impurities and bacteria and things like that from milk. And, they were trying to do it, but I think what had happened actually was they were, and I don't want to get into details because I'm not sure, but somehow the milk was tainted. I think it was being, handled in the same production environment that other things were being handled in. And it was
consulting Google.
Tainting the milk, and people were drinking tainted milk and dying, essentially. Mostly kids.
So,
and old people.
Yeah. Kids and old people.
Yeah.
So if you're young and you have a healthy digestion,
you can
just do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can probably get past that.
Yeah. That's the way I see it. I might get a little sick, but whatever. So one of the things I thought was really interesting, I remember the day that I was in the gym and I was coaching you, and I don't know how we got on the topic. He's like, what do you do? Like, oh, I export supplements to China. And I was just like, what? Sure. This doesn't make any sense. Like, the world just got turned upside down.
Right.
But I was immediately interested in what you did. And we got in a lot of conversations about the regulation on supplements here in the United States, the ability to make sure that what you're getting is really what you're buying is what you're really getting. We talked a little bit about there's some breakdowns. There's some different levels in manufacturing where communication or something can break down to where you're not really getting what you thought you were getting. So even outside the whole, whether creatine actually works or not, like there's the whole issue of whether you're actually getting creatine when the bottle says creatine.
Right. And it goes so far beyond that. Like calling it a breakdown is like, I don't know, calling the...
Is that an understatement?
Yeah, it's like calling the earthquake in Haiti a minor tremor. I mean, it's so mind-blowingly bad. When we were actually, had our hands in the supplement industry, we were ordering supplements from China, and they would just not send us at all what we had requested. And I think we talked about this. We had ordered some creatine monohydrate, and they sent us like water. I mean, just no attempt at all to try. And I think what the specific instance was, we ordered some AAKG, which I'm sure some of you will probably know what that is, and it was basically an anti-caking agent, and not at all, not even in the supplement industry, not even anything that you would use for any supplement product. And it was in a drum labeled AAKG, and if you're not really
they just put random shit in the supplements and send it to you. Right,
and I mean it's a coarse powder just the same, and somebody who really knows what they're dealing with would probably know. But if you're not on top of your testing, and if you're not on what's called the GMP, which is the FDA's they call it the GMP, the good manufacturing processes. Mm-hmm. If you're really not on top of that kind of process, which a lot of small supplement industries or small supplement suppliers just can't be from a cost perspective, you have no idea. So I mean, you get to, does creatine work, and is creatine actually in that bottle? And the answer a lot of times is maybe, maybe not.
Interesting. Okay. So if I buy a bottle of protein or something like that, and it's got the GMP label on there,
right?
What is that telling me exactly?
That tells you that the company is claiming that they are maintaining good manufacturing practices. The problem is the FDA has their arms tied up in so many different things. You know, I think Chris works for Smith & Nephew, and he can tell you the FDA is probably very involved with their work and their business. They are not very involved in dietary supplements at all. They're just not that concerned about it. It really falls in the same level as like pet food. You know, they occasionally audit. I think they audited, you know, maybe 300 facilities last year of nutritional supplement industries, which is not even a scratch in the surface of the supplement industry. And the people that they audit are normally larger scale players like EAS, who has a presence in Walmart or Walgreens or whoever.
Well, I mean,
dancing a line between supplement and food.
Sure.
From what I understand, that a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies are getting the same supplement manufactured. So, you know, creatine for one company, there's like 20 companies using the same manufacturer. They're just packaging it a little bit differently. So that being the case, like, I mean, how many manufacturers of supplements are out there in the United States?
There's endless. You know, I mean, that number changes probably by the hour. You know, how many small scale suppliers there are. Now, you do have a very limited supply of raw ingredient suppliers. And one of the big players in this is Mitsubishi, who makes the cars. They're also a huge conglomerate, but they deal a lot in supplies. And that's usually a pretty safe place to get your products from, or your raw ingredients
that sounds
from.
Incredibly odd.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mitsubishi stereos, cars, supplement ingredients.
Oh yeah.
I was super shocked to hear that.
Yeah.
I really was.
And if you really want to see the scale of it, you know, we'll talk about the natural food industry.
So you would say like the bigger raw supplement producers are probably more trustworthy, and that you're getting what you're really getting, or
for sure.
What's the deal on that?
And the reason is the large scale guys can afford the cost of the GMP processes. You know, the GMP process is really, really complex. It has a lot of rules and a lot of regulations that, like I said, if you and I were starting a supplement industry, there's just probably no way we could get our head around it without...
You had to hire a whole staff to run those procedures.
Sure.
So that's all completely voluntary.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not voluntary, but... I mean, if you open a supplement industry, you're liable for keeping your facility up to GMP standards. But the problem is there's really no accountability. You know, I mean,
who's going to audit you?
Yeah, exactly. The FDA has to go through medical devices, drug companies, food, cosmetic products, and then maybe they'll get to you around the same time they get to dog food. You know, so I mean, the chances of you being audited are so small.
There's a lot more FDA involvement than there used to be, though. Isn't it kind of heading that direction where they're starting to do more with dietary supplements than they used to?
They say that. You know, there's a big claim every year, and there's
Senator Hatch, where are you?
Right? Yeah, well, yeah. There's a private company that normally, if a small scale supplement vendor comes into the industry, they'll normally hire this company to kind of audit them and take them through the GMP process. And that company's name is NSF, and they work pretty closely with the FDA, and they publish, you know, a study every year on how many supplement places were audited and
those are the kind of agencies that do a much better job of making sure people are doing their job.
Oh, for sure.
You should pay people to audit you, then just have the FDA review a summary report that's certified. That'd be a better way of going forward.
Right, and that would be great if you could kind of get by with that. If the FDA actually audits you, it's really just about your paper trail. You know, it doesn't even have to be true in most cases. It's just, can you present a convincing case that you were doing the things that you needed to be doing, whether or not you were actually doing them or not. Because there's no way. The FDA comes out for 2 days, maybe 3. And the only way the FDA comes out, normally, is if there's an adverse report on your product. So if a customer calls and says, you know, I took this product and my face fell off, then the FDA.
So how many times have you gotten that report, Brad?
I think we're on 6 now. Audit 6. I'm just kidding. No, we've never been audited. So, you know, if the FDA gets that adverse report, then they make a decision, you know, whether or not they want to come out and audit. Normally, if you don't get an adverse report on your product, then they're not going to bother.
You're low risk.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to bother at all.
So if your paperwork's in order, then you're not going to you're covered pretty
Sure.
much.
And like I said, you could be grinding up puppies in the back and throwing them in your whey protein, and as long as you have that paper trail that says
high quality protein,
that says that you're not doing that,
high biological availability.
That might sell in Asia.
chances are.
Doug, come on. By the way, just now that we touched back on Asia, that milk thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm consulting Wikipedia, the 2008 milk scandal. Apparently, you had a bunch of infants and adults coming down with various stages of kidney failure and renal stress and death. And apparently, it's tied to a chemical, melamine.
That's it.
Melamine, which, among other things, was being used to sort of give the perception that the milk and formula had a higher protein content than it actually did.
Huh.
Interesting.
So it was used, I guess, as a cutter. Yeah, essentially.
They're cutting their milk.
Should have just gone with Ajax, right?
A cheap chemical that probably somebody did some sort of test and said, well, this is fine. This won't cause any problems. You use it in large amounts, and all of a sudden...
Probably worked fine on rats.
Some period of time after your testing window, like they said, oh, we tested this, and after a couple months, no one has any problems. But a year, 2 years, 5 years, people get these problems or whatever, then holy shitstorm, your head's decapitated, and
Sure.
they solved that problem.
They probably just tested on rats. Oh, the rats are still
Oh, yeah.
alive.
Oh, the rats are still alive
Oh,
after
yeah.
a week, so hey.
Let's give it to 1 million people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they got a population problem anyway, right?
You know, China could hear this.
They don't have real internet.
But not understand it. Fitter TV is actually probably blocked. You know, I go over there every now and then.
Anything that's giving them subversive information.
Yeah, oh yeah. Shortly before my my journey into the fitness world, I played a lot of Warcraft. For those of you who may not be able to tell by minority voice, but yeah, I played a lot, and I went over there, and I remember I was so frustrated.
Also known as WoW.
That's correct. WoW.
I learned that from Daniel Tosh.
Did you? Did you? Yes. Thank you, Daniel Tosh, wherever you may be tonight. So, and I was just really frustrated because I couldn't get to like my Warcraft page. You know, like what in the world?
When you're in China.
Yeah. What could I possibly do to like subvert your authority? You know, like I'm not secretly planning a coup through Warcraft. You know,
But you can you can chat in WoW, right?
You can for sure.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably hard to monitor all the chat that's going on inside of video game.
and the company that owns Warcraft opened some strictly Taiwanese servers, so China probably didn't take too kindly to that. So that may be why they blocked them.
Interesting.
They don't mess around.
No,
China.
they do not mess around with censorship.
That's such a weird. I don't quite understand. Communist, hyper capitalist, no holds barred, all holds barred. It's just a weird mix of all sorts of things.
I'm not really even sure how. I mean, Brad would probably know better exactly how their economy operates. I know that it used to be where the government pretty much owned all the companies, and then they would allow people to run them. And I think they're getting more and more autonomous. But I think the government's having a hard time letting them be as autonomous as they probably want to be.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair summation. Now, the irony is, you know, in addition to the supplement industry, I've kind of spent a lot of time in Asia. You know, I lived in Japan for a little while and I visited China a few times. And the funny thing is, you know, in Japan, it's a very conservative culture, and Japan actually feels more closed than China does. When you have your feet on the street in China, the people are really super friendly, and they're great to be around, and they're very hospitable.
And the food is probably absolutely drop dead amazing, right? I mean,
no, well, I mean,
you can't get like meat on a stick in the street.
Oh, you can for sure, but I mean,
What kind of meat is it?
Yeah, you go and they serve you.
Like I think I saw Andrew.
It's just like the supplements. You don't know really what it is.
Right.
It's Labrador.
I was told by wise people.
That's right.
Told by wise people, whatever is being cooked and being sold and eaten around you, no matter what it is, consume that thing. If there's something off to the side that's a little more comfortable to your palate, don't eat that. That's what makes you sick.
Yeah.
So if somebody's serving you a skewer of beating hearts from cobras, which I saw Andrew Zimmern eat one time. Somebody cut a cobra open and gave him the beating heart of a fucking cobra, and he ate it. And then he had like snake ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
But basically, whatever they're eating, I think I've heard that from Bourdain, Zimmern on his show, and also a guy at work who travels like nonstop. Who's like, yeah, eat whatever they got, man. Just do it.
Yeah, I went and ate authentic Chinese once with some Chinese friends of mine, and I asked her, I was like, just don't tell me what I'm eating.
Yeah.
You know, just don't tell me.
And plus, you don't want to be. You don't want to be the guy.
Before.
You don't want to be the guy who shows up and gets offered something. Goes, no, I don't want that.
Right.
Then you look at the fucking asshole American. They all think you are.
Funny story. We sit down. I'm with like it's me and one other round eye, and it's like
welcome to 1960.
So that's what they would.
It was me and one other non-Charlie.
Yeah, and it was Steven Seagal. That's who it was.
Me and my buddy were like the only 2 white guys there. It's like 8 Chinese folks, and we're all hanging out. We're having a good time, and I'm like, don't tell me what I'm eating. And one of them's obviously like a fried chicken foot.
Oh yeah, I heard they're great.
Delicious.
It's just a chicken foot, right? Yeah. So, and it's like family style. So I pick my chicken foot up off. I stick it on my plate, and 5 minutes goes by. But I stick the chicken foot in my mouth. I chew it up and I swallow it. So I don't know if you eat the bones. I got a couple friends there. My friend Tao, my friend Tao looks at me and goes, "Hey, bro, did you put the chicken foot back out there after it was on your plate? That's not very sanitary, dude. I don't appreciate that," or something like that. And I was like, "No, I ate it." He's like, "Well, where's the bone?" I was like, "No, I ate it."
You notice anything overly crunchy or?
I mean, I just
small
thought that's how
bones, I
they
guess
did
you
it.
could.
I didn't know anything. I was like, "Oh, well, I'm an idiot." I had to like convince them that I didn't put it back. I was like, "No, seriously, I ate it." And they were like, "No way you did that." I was like, "No, I ate it."
Yeah, toenails and all, I ate it.
Just right down in there.
I don't know. I mean, that between that and some other stuff that was like raw eggs, like they had that consistency.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like,
well, yeah.
okay. I don't.
The
To
biggest
this day, I
problem-
don't know what that was.
The biggest problem with Americans is texture. Like as soon as you get some weird, like especially like the like when I was in
It's probably because we cook everything.
when I was in Hoorn for the first time, a suburb of Amsterdam with family. I was offered pickled herring, which a lot of people love, and they eat it. You take this pickled herring and you just smush it with raw onion and just eat it. So it's like a gelatinous pickled fish, like 6 or 8 inches long. So there's a picture of me. I pick it up and go, "Oh, yeah, this should be fine." I put it in my mouth, and it was just like firm, fishy Jello. And I bite into it, and it's sort of just like this jelly feel in my mouth, and it was every molecule in my body to fight and go, "Don't throw up on the kitchen table. Don't throw up on the kitchen table."
You'll have a lot of those experiences if you ever
Yeah,
venture into China.
it's worth it. I mean, it's a great memory, but the texture is super challenging. Like in Korea, when they have like the potent like kimchi stuff or the fermented fish eggs and stuff. Like Andrew Zimmer one time pulled out. This dude was in Vietnam or Korea or somewhere, and he pulled out. They served him a fermented, almost hatched duck egg.
Oh yeah.
So he like pulled this thing out of an egg, and it was a feathered duck embryo with a yolk sac attached to it. He bit through the whole thing.
Yeah, like a balut, I guess is what they call it.
It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And he's
Sounds terrible.
He goes, "It's very, very swampy, very, very." You know, he said, "Very." I'm getting a lot of feather and swamp and mud tones. Asshole comment.
I actually saw that episode. I think it was in Cambodia, is where he's actually at.
Yeah, we may have been watching at the same time. Actually, I think
may have watched that together.
Yeah,
I think what it was he bought a so many week old like this is 3 week old duck, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and then he like opens it up. He's like, "This is not 3 weeks. This is at least 6." You know, it's like
some kind of weird comment.
It was like too far along, and he's like, "I don't know if I should eat this." You know,
it was so gross.
It was pretty awesome. Ashley can't watch that. Like Ashley, my wife, is extremely prone to throwing up at any given moment. All you gotta do is go like that, and she is running for the bathroom like as fast as she can.
And can't see anybody in a mask.
No, can't see it.
Even if it's just like a piece of paper over somebody's face.
Exactly.
Is that true?
That is very true.
It's super true.
She can't go
if you go like this, she's fucking totally scared.
You can't take her to a theme park.
Ashley.
I'm doing that tomorrow.
You take her to a theme park, man. She can't get.
Show up tomorrow and
Mickey Mouse is the scariest person on the
planet.
planet.
Hockey mask.
Something may have happened to her as a young child, and she like blocked it out. But as far as I know, she doesn't have any real reason to be terrified of masks. But you never know.
Yeah.
So.
Halloween is the worst holiday ever for her.
She hates it.
It's so bad.
She hates it. Yeah, it's really funny for me.
Wait, so Brad, like, how come you have specifically chosen just to go to China? Like, how come you haven't tried to break into the American market at all?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the product we sell is more in the vein of that sort of traditional Chinese remedy. And so we don't really think that it would be very popular here. And another point is it saves us a lot of money not really having to deal, knowing that we're not going to have to deal as extensively with the FDA as we would, if we had a presence in America. And, for the cost involved to keep up the testing and the stuff that the GMP require, it would just be, monetarily less enjoyable.
Uh-oh.
What is that?
Supposed to evacuate?
And that's a message from our sponsor. Do you need an alarm?
Everyone turn off their phones.
All right.
James.
I thought you wanted to know when time was up.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, time for
That was
break.
our first segment.
Yep.
Oh, we used a different timer this time. Oh. What are we gonna? All right, let's
You guys wanna take a break and we'll revisit that when I get back, or when we get back.
yeah, let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll be back with Brad talking about.
Boring stuff.
After a message from our sponsors.
My name is James Chaney. I'm a filmmaker, and we are in the process of producing a documentary film about Olympic weightlifting as we lead up to the 2012 Olympic Games in London this summer.
Olympic weightlifting is a really fantastic sport. It's actually one of the most spectator-friendly sports at the Olympic Games. It draws really big crowds and gets really big wows. These guys lift a lot of weight and they move really fast. It's almost inhuman.
If you're not very familiar with Olympic weightlifting, that's because in America, it's not the biggest sport right now. In other countries, especially like the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and China, Olympic weightlifting is absolutely huge. Go to Europe and all their biggest athletes, on all their billboards, on all the buses, are their Olympic weightlifters.
The United States has some really amazing Olympic weightlifting athletes. What we want to do is follow the top athletes in their competitions as we lead up to the 2012 Games in London. So these athletes are amazing people. They're super dedicated. They don't get paid hardly any money or any money at all. They work other jobs. One guy we know, he works as a janitor, and he's one of the best weightlifters in the world.
As right now, we have put together some of the production, some of the filming has taken place. We do have enough equipment to make it happen. We would like more equipment and higher quality computer gear and stuff like that so that we can edit quicker. Also, we need money to travel. We need money to send at a minimum 2 videographers to Guatemala and to London.
So as you probably already know, Olympic weightlifting as a sport is very underrepresented in the United States. And so a documentary film like this has never been done before, even though these guys are world-class athletes.
One of the reasons we want to do this, and we think we can do it better than anybody else, is both Doug and myself have competed in the past in Olympic weightlifting. We've done many competitions and been members of USA Weightlifting for years and years and years. So we know the people that are involved. We're familiar with the coaches. They're familiar with us. And I think we'll be able to make the connections necessary to get the best footage possible. We're not going to get this opportunity again. The Olympics only comes around every 4 years, and our opportunity to follow these particular athletes is never going to happen again.
If you like this project, if you like our idea and what we're doing, just check out on the side of the banner next to the video, and you can see what kinds of benefits that you're going to get from helping us out financially with this Kickstarter campaign. Thanks a lot for watching. We hope you like our idea and our project and what we're trying to do. And with your help, we'll see you in London.
I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Mike's
right,
about
guys.
to walk out of set.
Welcome back from your break watching video. Insert name of video here. I hope you enjoyed that video.
It was great.
It was great.
All right, so Brad, you were talking about we were getting into why you guys do not delve into the U.S. market with your supplements.
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit. I think first of all, we talked about our supplement is definitely a niche product in China, and we just don't feel like that niche would translate well to the American market. But on the other side of that is also we talked a little bit about how small suppliers of supplements have a hard time wrapping their head around the FDA requirements. And the FDA does some things that are really good, but they create a large barrier to entry for small people trying to get into the market. There's a whole lot of just ridiculous rules, that get carried over from the pharmaceutical industry or the food industry that they've taken and tried to kind of adapt them to, the supplement industry. A really good example is the labeling for nutritional supplements. Mm-hmm. Nutritional supplement labels have to be accounted. There has to be a process in place, a written process in place, and documented throughout every batch that you run, label accountability. You know, like how many labels did you use? How many did you? How many went to scrap? And you know that's just not a very, you know, it's a transaction cost of doing business. You know,
Right.
So you know, and I understand that from a pharmaceutical standpoint, because if you mislabel aspirin and give someone the wrong dosage,
Somebody dies.
they could probably die. But asking a small startup supplement industry to kind of have a label accountability procedure and 50,000 other procedures like a label accountability procedure, it just gets cumbersome and expensive, you know, let alone the testing. You know, the FDA requires, quote unquote, that you test every single batch of raw ingredient that comes into your facility for handling. So there's a quarantine phase. You have to ship out. You either have to test it in-house or ship out to independent laboratory and wait for the results to get back before you release it from quarantine.
So either you pay and wait for that, or you invest in a testing facility of your own, which is
Right,
crazy
right.
expensive.
Right, which I mean, if you're a small scale operation, you know, a single test is, you know,
Maybe
6
5 employees of this company or something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly right. You know, there's just no way that a small scale company can one, really navigate these rules effectively, because you have to have somebody. You definitely have to have someone who knows the process, you know, and understands the process of an FDA audit and a GMP audit. And two, you have to have someone who really gives a shit, you know, like who thinks that the FDA has a valid point and feels that just having these processes in place will be good for the company, knowing that they may or may not be audited.
I would be terrible for that job.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
I'm like, FDA who?
you know, and it
Screw
goes,
those guys.
it gets so ridiculous. Like, I'll give you guys a couple of examples real quick, and then we'll move on. But the FDA wants you to test for water potability. And what that is you know, basically the quality of your drinking water, and which is pretty easy now because they have, you know, tests that you can use on your own. But when you're first getting started, they want you to go to the municipality oftentimes and get like a report from the GIS. You know, like I would go to Memphis GIS Services or Memphis Geographical Services and have them pull the water potability reports and have those on file. You know,
Well, that
Go
doesn't
ahead.
make any sense. Like, so
Sure.
every business in this area would have to prove that the water that they all use. It seems like that's not their responsibility.
Sure.
Fuck, we're hooked up to the city's water supply.
Right.
It's their job to make sure the water's okay.
Right, and what the FDA would say to that is, well, you have to do it on a weekly basis from a different water source each time, and if it's not up to par, which you have to constantly monitor for,
Different water sources within your town.
right? So like, no. Like if you have 4 sinks, you know, in your facility, they want you to test from they don't want you just testing from the quote unquote good sink, so they want you testing all around your facility.
I mean, I guess you could have rusty pipes or something.
Sure.
You know,
It might have lead pipes somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the FDA makes no policy for that. So if it's rusty pipe on the city's end or it's rusty pipe on your end, it doesn't matter. The FDA says the burden falls on you, and if your water falls outside of those potability measures, it's your job to filter it, and you know. And like I said, it's not necessarily that one policy, but it's so many of those.
1,000 of
policies.
those.
Right? Yeah. It's just it gets really expensive really fast, and the transaction costs are really, really, really high. If you actually do it right, which no one does, even the big players, you know, really, they're just.
So are the big supplement companies that have a lot of money, are they more likely to give you a higher quality product? Or I see a lot of stuff online. I even have some people who seem to be pretty knowledgeable about supplements, and they usually point to the smaller companies that are much more niche than, say, EAS. EAS, who's like, you know, they're getting everybody in every gym type of thing.
Right.
And then you have like this niche product, and they're only going after the people who follow, you know, the warrior diet or something like that. Well,
Right.
if you do the warrior diet, then you're going to take these supplements, and that's extremely niche.
That's interesting because I did see there was some sort of report a few months ago where somebody tested multivitamins in a grocery store, cheap brands versus the higher end brands, and found that the cheaper brands, or like the Kroger brands, had more consistent mineral content than your Centrums and your daily whatever's XYZs.
Sure.
So the Kroger brand.
Yeah, I mean there was no benefit to paying premium for vitamins.
Sure.
And kind of on that note, maybe a year ago now, Consumer Reports did a bunch of research into heavy metals in protein powders and a variety of other supplements, and that was a big fiasco in the whole fitness world.
Absolutely, I remember that.
Well, I know a lot of people were, you know, for a while there, you know, basically swearing off, I'm never doing supplements ever again because
They had
Doing them like
they
drugs.
Had lead. Yeah, that's right. They had lead and arsenic and a variety of other things I can't remember at the moment. But
Like mercury.
yeah, they had mercury in there, and,
Yeah.
and all the stuff that you obviously shouldn't be putting in your body in high enough concentrations where I was expecting lawsuit after lawsuit to follow those reports.
And probably didn't happen.
And I don't remember seeing them. There very well may have been, because they were for big products. Like I remember Muscle Milk was like top of the charts.
Oh yeah. And,
Oh yeah.
To address
Cytosport was up there.
to address Mike's point, we need to make a delineation that compliance with the FDA really doesn't have anything to do with product quality. I mean, it does to some extent, but just because you're compliant with the FDA doesn't mean that your product is any good. It means you have a really good paper trail and your facility is probably pretty clean.
You're good at keeping yourself accountable
Right.
for your procedures.
Right now,
It doesn't matter what your procedures are like.
right.
Like, your procedures could be total shit, but
Maybe you're more inclined to have a shittier product.
know
'cause
how to look good.
You got to
Right.
keep
Right.
margins. You got to restore margins by having cheap ingredients because you have to pay so much for the quality.
That's exactly right. What the small
Could be the
what the
case.
small players normally have on their side is they have genuine passion for their product. So they're really concerned with, what's the quality of this protein that we're putting in our protein powder? What's the quality of this whey that we're putting in our whey powder? Whereas, when it gets to like a Walmart distribution type level, I mean, they're just looking for the bottom dollar whey protein that they're making it as cheaply as they can to get as many on the shelves. It turns into a volume game. And so, there's pros and cons to each one, and you just, as a consumer, have to kind of decide, are you going to go with these larger kind of FDA compliant facilities that are going to turn out a relatively consistent product, regardless of whether or not it's just consistent shit, or, are you going to go with kind of the new guy on the block who is really interested in getting the maximum result out of this product?
I guess this is a good lesson. This translates to food and everything else. And
Right, and that falls really on the conscious of the consumer.
all right. Well, that's a good point, because I know that we at our gym get our food from a couple different sources, and one of them is directly from a farm. And I know some people from our facility that have been to that farm, so they've been able
Yeah,
to.
you might want to elaborate how you define the word farm,
What do you mean?
because there's all kinds of farms, aren't there? There are farms with fucking
an
pigs
industrialized
caged up in
farm.
chicken
This
wire.
is
This would be a sustainable
For the
farm.
benefit of the
Something-
audience,
something,
dear friend.
I don't know. I guess what's called sustainable farming or beyond organic or something like that.
In your mind, picture a children's book, Old MacDonald, that kind of fucking farm.
That kind of farm, not the kind of farm. They're
A guy walking around taking care of animals and plants.
yeah, they've got more than one thing going on. Most farms actually have a single item that they grow or they raise. So they only do cattle, or they only do corn, or they only do apples.
But then you poison the land and everything.
So,
That's a whole other
they have
thing
to
to go into.
import. They have to import and export a lot of product. Whereas with these other farms, they don't import or export hardly anything. They use the manure instead of some chemicals for fertilizer, stuff like that. So, and they go beyond the standards for organic. The organic standards are actually pretty low, but they go beyond it, and they know that the customers really appreciate that. So they make deliveries all over Tennessee. And I think they have a hard time delivering some of their products outside of the state, because once you start crossing state lines with certain products, i.e. raw milk, then you're you're a felon at that point. You're breaking federal laws.
Absolutely.
So,
How dare you?
which is pretty interesting in itself, but we won't go there today. But for instance, this particular farm, Westwind Farms, where we get some shipments to our facility, there have been people from our facility that have actually gone and put eyes on the farm. Okay, this place is legit. They're not, they really care about the animals. The cage-free chickens are actually out pastured chickens. They're not kept in a barn with a tiny door and called cage-free. So, that's the type of facility I'm talking about. So we can do that with our food, and we have done that with our food. And that's pretty much the only place I do get my food is from places where I have like a personal relationship, almost a personal relationship with the owners, and full trust that they're gonna do what they say they're doing.
I think you're this close from being the guy who wants to kill his own cow.
Hey man.
Oh, yeah.
Faction
You
hunting
want to
club.
kiss it on the cheek, pet it, learn its nickname, then slit its throat. Or be the one to double tap it on
Who
the back
hasn't
of the
done
skull.
that?
I haven't done it. You know I haven't done it. I would never. I could never kill.
One day.
I could never kill a living thing. I'll just eat his corpse. It's much easier. My conscience is so clean. It's great.
One. By the way, guys, for the audience, we are planning to go for a weekend, and Chris Moore make his first kill and eat. So,
I'm so domesticated, man. It's ridiculous.
We're gonna turn him into a feral Chris.
Yeah. So
I
I'll
know, man.
behave
He's
like I look.
He's gonna grow tusks and everything.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
So, anyways, so we can do that with our food. We can visit the farm, and we can go locally, and it obviously costs more. Can we do that with our supplements? Is there a way to kind of check on shit ourselves?
It's definitely more difficult to do in the supplement industry because, one of two things happens. Either you get the company either gets a direct line to a source of whatever ingredient. Let's take whey protein because that's one that everybody here uses, or fish oil. They have a direct line to the guy who makes the fish oil, which is actually really rare. What normally happens is they interact with a broker or an agent or a larger distributor to get theirs. And larger distributors can really be kind of almost hostile. When you start asking, where did you get this? Is this from wild caught fish? Or, where's this sourced? And, they don't want to give you that because then you can just end around them.
Right.
If you're getting your ingredients from China, the guy that you order from China doesn't care if he's sending to you or to Mitsubishi. He'd rather just as soon send straight to you, at a higher price or whatever. So it's harder to get that direct relationship with your raw ingredient suppliers. It can be done. It is done in some cases, but for the most part, you're kind of at the mercy of, which raw ingredient supplier do you trust the most.
And that's if you're running a supplement company.
Correct.
So me as an individual who I'm the end consumer here.
Right. You're going to have to go a step further.
I'm buying it from a website or a guy that says, hey, our whey protein is, it comes from pastured cows. They're not, the cows aren't, cooped up and grain fed and all that kind of stuff. They're from pastured cows. It's cold pressed, non-denatured protein. Yada yada yada. It hasn't been exposed to high heat, and they're saying this stuff. It's on the label. When I take it, of course, I'm like, oh man, I read the label. Sounded like this stuff is way higher quality. So I've got a little bit of the, psychologically, I'm going, man, I feel really good.
Right.
I like the way this stuff makes me feel.
I feel more huge already.
And I recognize that. I'm like testing this stuff on myself, but I know that I'm taking it. So it's really hard to do a double blind study on yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Some people might call that impossible, actually.
I tricked myself.
So, but yeah.
What we could do is I could set the supplements up, and then Doug could punch me right afterwards, and I won't remember anything about what I had set up.
I've seen Doug work the bag. This seems like a good plan.
You don't want Doug punching you.
So, but to answer your question, yeah, it's even harder for the consumer because they're one step removed. I have to go to the supplement company. They have to tell me who their supplier is. I have to go to the supplier, and they have to tell me who their source is. If I want to do all the research myself, and that can get really tough for a consumer to do, and most people don't do real well with tough. So, if you really want to do it, you could probably track it down, and it would take some effort. It could be done, but it's usually not.
So for me, I've got, personally, I've been kind of thinking about just my own health, and then, of course, anything I do for myself, I want to do for the members of the gym as well, because I don't want to be off on one path and then leading them down another path or anything like that. So I want everyone to be on the same page. I want everyone to get the best stuff, highest quality. So I've been kind of trying to figure out what I could do to figure out what's best. What would you suggest that if I wanted to make sure that I was getting the highest quality protein without any of the crazy additives or chemicals or whatever,
right,
and down to the other supplements too, but just using protein as an example, what would you suggest would be the smartest way? Maybe not all the way where I have to track down the guy chopping down or feeding the cow or anything like that, but what makes sense, economically even too? Yeah,
I mean, I think if you're really interested, there's a couple things you can do, and there's a couple ways we've seen people handle this. First, you're always going to be a little bit safer with minimum ingredient supplements. That makes sense. fish oil. It's one ingredient. You know what it is. It's easier.
Stay away from the proprietary blend with 18 different ingredients.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, those are almost
random shit. That is...
Sure. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has seen Bigger, Faster, Stronger, which is a documentary on steroids. And for the audience who hasn't seen it, there's a
go see it.
Right. You should definitely go see that movie. But there's a scene in there where he starts his own quote unquote supplement label, and he basically just grabs some rice flour, the minimum amount of these ingredients that he can put in this product to call it a product. And he gets some day laborers and they make it in his kitchen, And then they hide behind the thing that we've all seen before, proprietary blend. Mm-hmm. So, you really want to stay away from really complicated formulas. And, if you're really concerned about purity, it's obviously going to be easier to trace the purity of a single ingredient supplement versus a proprietary blend with 19 different.
That's one thing we do already.
Right.
We don't sell products that have creatine in them. We just sell the creatine.
Right. That being said, from a retailer standpoint, some large retailers do this. Periodically, they will send off their supplements for a analysis test from an independent laboratory. From a FDA certified laboratory or even not FDA certified laboratory, university or whatever. And that's usually a pretty cheap test. You can get that done for anywhere from $300 to $800, depending on how expensive or how complicated the product is and how much they need to break down and kind of the nature of the supplements. And that's really worth doing.
Could I use a test like that if I wanted to send off one of these higher end, smaller companies?
You absolutely could.
Like, can I compare like the non-denatured cold pressed protein versus like the EAS protein, just to see which one?
In that case, they would
higher quality and all that kind of stuff.
In that case, they would probably give you a purity. They would say, this fish oil is 99.98% fish oil. This fish oil is 86% fish oil. You're obviously better with the 99.98.
So if you're talking about purity, like say something is only 80%, whatever, whey protein, for example.
Right.
Like what else is in it? I know you got potentially artificial sweeteners or anti-caking agents or just plain filler, maybe just to make it look bigger.
Those are you just nailed the big three. I mean, anti-caking is something that you have to put in there. The amount is pretty small normally. Rice flour, which again you see in Bigger, Faster, Stronger, is a huge filler. I can probably but won't name 15 different suppliers who
So what's the purpose of rice flour? Is just to give it more volume.
Just filler. It just like Mike alluded.
You can put it in bigger containers, help for more money. It's just more stuff.
Just like cocaine.
Like how some people, have a little bit of that special magic that turns a kilo into a kilo and a half of cocaine. And that's what they do.
did notice.
Pad your margins.
This is interesting because there's this one supplement that I've been using that's more expensive, smaller company, and I'm not going to come out and promote them just yet. But I've noticed
not until they give you free shit.
Right.
They're on to me.
Yeah, that's right. I was making some phone calls this week.
That's right.
No, I'm getting more protein per volume, or the scooper's smaller, but I'm getting the same however many grams of protein. That's what the label says anyway.
Sure.
So is that a good chance that like the EAS I was using had more fillers?
Right, and the smaller companies are usually really honest. They know that they're fighting an uphill battle against larger suppliers, and they're normally a lot more willing to tell you, yes, we get this from here. Go ahead.
Well, sorry, I interrupted you, and I apologize sincerely. But you gotta know in this world that if you pick up two products and it's supposed to be the same thing, and one has more servings and is cheaper, but they're calling it both things whey protein powder, your first thought has to be something's going on to justify the difference in price, right?
Well,
there should be an assumption that they've done something to lower the quality of that.
Not always, because you guys, I mean, you could have the appearance of a higher quality product and just charge more money. I know that happens. So with other stuff, but usually you get what you pay for most of the time. But one of the things is with say EAS versus one of these smaller companies is, am I really, is it worth the artificial sweeteners and the fillers and all that kind of stuff? Like how much is it really? Do I need to be putting sucralose in my body every single day? And not only that, is this other company that's smaller, do they have sucralose in their product, but they're just not saying they do? You know what I mean? So I'm paying,
because they're not testing.
I'm paying the extra bucks to avoid those artificial sweeteners and getting a higher percentage of protein per whatever. But are they just taking EAS bag and like dumping it into a different container,
Right.
You know, in their facility,
Right now, you're
and then charging me double of what I get? You know, I just that's kind of where
Sure.
I'm coming from on that. Is like,
You're anti-capitalist.
to shed some light on that.
They're capitalizing.
To kind of answer that, like I said, most of the small companies are really honest. So if you're getting a product where, some test is run and they find out that it's inferior, it's usually just as much as a shock to the small supplier as it is to you, the consumer. And normally what's happened is the small supplier has been kind of deceived by their raw supplier, their raw ingredient supplier. So in most cases, you are safer, I would say. Well, like I said, smaller suppliers are usually just more honest. And larger suppliers, you gotta accept them for what they are. They're looking to make the bare minimum profitable whey protein. We say EAS and other companies like that, but the large scale distributors of whey protein, they're looking for how can they.
It's inherent to the business model.
Sure,
right?
exactly right. And
so if I want to offer my members and just my customers, period, higher quality protein, I probably should be going to the smaller companies. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
My
this.
suggestion would be yes.
And you said they'd be more willing to be open.
Absolutely.
I mean, you think I could probably get like the owner of one of these companies?
Oh, yeah.
Interviewed
Oh, yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
visit the
man,
facility.
The smaller whey protein, like there's probably one girl who answers the front desk, a couple of guys who run it, and then the owner. It's probably 4 or 5. It's not rocket science to run a supplement business.
Do you know any small companies that we could go after here in the United States?
Don't say go after. You mean interview.
Yeah.
Investigative journalism.
Yeah,
they're like that guy said go after. No way.
Yeah, I'm sure we could probably. I could probably refer you to some that we'll name off air and kind of point you in the direction of how that process runs for sure.
Like a local mom and pop supplement company, been in business for 35 years. Just your average, everyday supplement manufacturer.
Pope and protein manufacturer. I could probably put you in touch with those guys.
In my mind, I picture in your mind like a local mom and pop fucking maple syrup distillery. Yep, this has been our family for 100 years. We just sit around making 1 bottle a day. Like, or if they do it the same thing for like fucking protein powder.
Yeah.
We craft every single bottle of protein to your specifications.
Yeah, and so
we hand seal it and stamp it with fucking wax and a seal.
And a lot of times the deception doesn't really, that's a really, like I said, you're splitting hairs when you get to, deceiving people on the ingredients. Where people really get deceived is on the product itself. The efficacy of, heavy water is one that we've had to deal with a lot. And, that's just
probably your best seller.
It is. It's a pretty good one.
Heavy water.
And so,
What do you put in your heavy water? Is it a proprietary blend?
It's a proprietary blend.
got
for
it.
Sure. And so, there's all
That's
these.
all he sells is proprietary.
We mix
He's like, don't trust those guys. Oh yeah, that's all I sell.
It's a proprietary water and mercury blend. To make the water heavy.
So
Who needs 2 eyes? You only need 1.
Guaranteed to have an effect.
Only the heaviest metals in our water.
Yeah. So, like I said, the deception normally comes on the premise of the product itself. What you need to be looking at, once you get past, or when you're entering is the supplement world, I guess you would say, is what's the research behind this product and does it actually work? Does it have peer-reviewed evidence that shows that exactly what they're putting in the bottle is exactly what was tested?
For that specific brand, or are you talking about just like creatine in general?
Just creatine in general.
Okay.
There are so many just bogus supplements out there. There's a really good website called Information is Beautiful, and they recently did a really
it's a great
cool
site.
Yeah, they really did it. They do a lot of visual.
I haven't heard that site.
Yeah.
Oh really?
They do a visual representation of all these
I mean,
statistics.
I'm in PubMed every day.
Yeah.
But
This has got pictures.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's like
Yeah.
It's
it's
way
like
to-
reading, but not.
It's like my type of website, all right?
yeah, and I mean, Chris Moore probably has a little more free time than I do, and I don't have 6 hours a day to surf PubMed. Just kidding, Chris.
That's my job. I'm looking for evidence. What was the website?
Informationisbeautiful.com. And they do a really good job of, even supplements that do have some credible use often get kind of attributed to these things that they are absolutely useless for. Like, I don't know, St. John's wort cures cancer. No, it doesn't. I mean, it has some useful benefits, but that's not one of them.
Well,
I think one of those guys did a TED Talk, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that whole look up.
Oh, yeah,
I think
he
it's a
used
snake
that.
oil, oil something. Snake
right.
oil supplements on
Right.
information is beautiful.
Snake oil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got this cool interactive chart where basically has the supplements with the most efficacy towards the top for the specific thing that they're supposed to be helping. It'll say fish oil and inflammation. It'll be like right up top, and then the size of the bubble is how many studies have been done for that particular ailment or what have you.
Right.
And then you can, and it has a Google Doc that's publicly shared that has all the different articles that's referencing. It takes you straight to
I've seen
PubMed.
that
Right.
before, yeah.
And what's
fantastic.
And what's really interesting is you'll see like fish oil way at the top for, inflammation or whatever, and then way at the bottom for some other, thing that it allegedly cures.
Sure,
or some
it'll
other
say like
ailment.
joint pain.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
something that, which maybe it kind of helps with that, but there's no studies that show that.
Exactly right.
Right.
So that's
even if anecdotally people say it does.
right. And like I said, when you're first getting into supplements, that's the thing in the current environment that you really need to be looking at the most is, does this product really do what it says it does? And who says that it actually does what it says it does, and how did they prove it?
Don't listen to your buddy at the gym who's a bodybuilder.
Definitely
who
do
swears
not do
by
that.
it. Spend some time going on decent sites, and it sounds like informationisbeautiful.com is one hell of a one.
Right.
You need to
They
get
do
your
a
hand-
very good job of summing up large volumes of information into one small picture.
Seek out
pretty
actual evidence.
Right.
There's one supplement that always stands out to me anytime we have like a conversation about this. One is nitric oxide, and it's not that it doesn't work. I think most studies have said
explode.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it causes like an 8% increase in vasodilation. But then there's like this other study that like they played music that the person liked, and it caused like a 20% increase. It's like, I think I'll just wear my Walkman to the gym
Right.
instead.
And that's
so
a-
like,
You have a Walkman?
Yeah, everything just has to be better than nothing.
Sure. And
so they're spending $60 a month on this NO supplement, and
Which technically has an effect of some kind, that 8%.
but not $60 a month.
No.
You know what? If I had all the money in the world,
15 days a
I
month.
would probably take. I probably still wouldn't take it because I wouldn't want to
for
take
most
the
guys,
time to
It's
have
like
to put
warming
it in
up
my
increases
system.
vasodilation by probably more than
Like
8%.
we've noticed.
So I mean, warming up,
Right,
just starting to do some activity probably vasodilates you more than 8%.
Right.
And
And
that's a total fucking guess on my part, but I bet you.
or these guys who are in
I mean,
these
I don't know what the
gyms
percentage would be.
eating, taking that $60 and putting it towards meat or spending an extra hour a day sleeping would have the most profound effect for these guys.
The same people that can't afford high quality food spend $60 a month on NO Explode.
You don't understand.
Exactly
I can't
right.
afford grass.
I can't afford it. My bar tab is only $200 a month.
right. Now, and that comes back. A lot of
It's like the girl who says, "Oh, I would have returned your I would have returned your call, but I've been really busy." That's horseshit. Then a guy who says, "Oh, I would have got that, but I'm limited money." You have money for everything, motherfucker.
somebody sounds a little jaded.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna look at Chris's high school
Expressing old Valentine's Day memories.
This is the Valentine's Day edition.
Yeah,
This is Valentine's
we're all
Day.
here. We're all gonna get our.
This
But usually,
Ask
anytime,
Sam to us tomorrow.
anytime somebody says, "Oh, I wish I could do that," but it's horseshit, right?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too
99%
is
of
people
the time
people
it's-
want like what I hate is when people are like, "Well, these are the supplements I'm taking. What else should I take?" I'm like, fill out a diet log for the next 3 days and bring it to me.
Yeah.
Because
You'll never see that dialogue.
it doesn't matter what you're taking if your diet is shit. So
Food is still the
Right.
most important thing.
Right, and
Right.
still back to the point. And nitric oxide or NO2, I guess, is what they call it in the biz.
We
Is-
in the biz.
the NO supplement.
A lot of times, those products aren't even nitric oxide. They're what's called nitric oxide "quote unquote" activators.
Oh, okay.
And so you're getting absolutely zero benefit. They're just kind of packaging in the purported benefit of nitric oxide into branding for their product, and you see that
Well,
all
2 out
the
of 3
time.
words is the same.
Right? I mean, pretty close.
Just 66% equivalence.
2 out of 3 words agree.
And
What about that other word?
And that's pretty good. Most
do it.
products don't have any words they agree.
So speaking of being, totally deceived, we were talking about. Oh god, we're out of time.
Shut that shit off.
We're talking about
In
organic
podcast
stuff.
world, we never run out of time.
True
Right.
story.
It's
We can stay here
virtual
all
time.
night. So we were talking about organic products, and you were suggesting that organic basically doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah. I think we, kind of in the break, we were talking this over, and I said that a product calling itself organic is like a business major saying that he thinks outside of the box. It's just kind of a buzzword or a key phrase they all kind of throw around, and it has very minimal requirements. Like if somebody says they think out of the box, that normally means they may have taken a business class at some point in their life, or read a book about business. But that's really about all it means. And that's where I was kind of getting with this is a lot of this marketing is kind of haloing products into other purported benefits and it's really just not true at all. We, like I said, we were talking during the break, and coming up next month is this thing called Expo West, and it's the largest natural/organic trade show in America, and it happens annually every year in Anaheim, California. It's in the Anaheim Convention Center. It's huge. It's like a 3-story ordeal, and it's over a weekend, and it would probably take you the entire weekend to run it or walk it. And companies spend probably hundreds of thousands. Some probably spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their displays. They give away free samples all weekend long, promoting their healthy products. And I would say that probably 66% of them are not healthy at all. Organic waffles, organic Pop-Tarts, organic ice cream. It's really just going to give you an organically fat ass and make you die of organic heart disease. It's just.
I already have a problem. With these terms, because if you want a waffle, you should get the ingredients, mix it up, cook it properly, and eat a fucking waffle.
Right.
You are a human. You're here for a finite amount of time. Don't sit around eating bullshit versions of the real thing.
Right.
If you're gonna be a fat ass, at least have the decency to be a real fat.
It's like the vegans that eat vegan hot dogs. I'm like, you're
yeah.
not a real vegan if you're eating vegan hot dogs. Come on.
How could you eat that beef patty? I only eat Boca burgers, which are processed soybean burgers, and they don't read the fine print. Well, these soybeans were grown with industrial fertilizers and pesticides and processed and destroyed chemically, packaged into meat-like forms and fed to you, which is probably 10 times worse than a fucking ground beef hamburger.
Yeah, Doug and I got in this conversation on the way over here, and we were talking about how, I feel like
you were talking about Boca burgers earlier?
No, I was talking about how our generation, we've got a lot of people who are getting type 2 diabetes at a young age, and we've got a lot of people who, I consider them, when I look at people's diets and I get to see exactly what they're eating a bunch of processed meat and processed carbs, just grain products essentially. Not a lot of nutrients there. These people are malnourished. If they were to go get blood and they were to look at it and say, what do your vitamins and minerals look like? They would be terrible. So what we have is an entire generation, and then these people are actually having kids and raising them,
popping up with mysterious
scary.
Cancers when they're in their 50s and 40s.
We live in a country where we have all the opportunity in the world. So what we end up with is a bunch of kids who are going to be very malnourished. They're not going to have all the vitamins and minerals they need, and the good proteins and good fats and all that kind of stuff to grow nice,
not
healthy
paying
bodies.
Attention to school. Can't keep up with the math these kids in India and China are doing.
But
that shit ain't even a joke. That's real.
But the thing is
it's not that
they're
real.
probably getting the same.
No, it's not that real.
They're getting the same nutritional value as maybe one of these poor kids with a fat belly in
It
Africa.
helps to make your point if you scream and you shake your finger.
So I can't do that.
No,
They're getting about the same amount of nutrition as some of these kids in these third world countries that don't eat, but once every 3 days or something like that. But
it's great for keeping thin.
They're getting an abundance of carbohydrates and calories. So what we're ending up with is not only are we just as malnourished as these other countries voluntarily, but we're also getting really fat and diabetic. So what's going to end up happening is you have all of the problems of the third world plus diabetes and insulin resistance.
Sure.
So I don't know, 20, 30 years, I really think you're going to see disease run. You think it's bad now. I think it's going to get way worse because people they choose to not be educated. They choose not to make the right choices, I guess.
Bodes well for healthcare costs. And
guess what? I'm going to be paying for this. You know what I mean? I mean, the way the healthcare is set up now is if you don't take care of yourself, nobody is.
Well, I read this a couple weeks ago. One of my favorite columnists Mark Morford wrote a thing about the new Taco Bell breakfast food. Have you seen that fucking thing? It's like
man, I gotta go get this.
It's like
I hadn't heard about
toast. It's like one of those bowl looking like shapes of tortilla shell.
Oh, so like a taco salad shell.
No. It's like I don't know. There's 800 different words describing the same thing at Taco Bell. It's just a shallow taco bowl.
Right.
Like a taco salad bowl.
It's that.
It's a fucking bowl.
I said it, man.
It's a shallow bowl.
Is it made of corn?
moving right along.
Apparently.
This
Filled
is
with
the argument
some
we were
sort
looking for earlier
filled with some sort of egg type thing.
on something super important too.
some sort of egg type thing, some sort of pseudo ground beef substance, and then fucking like fake cheese poured on top.
Maple syrup?
No syrup, cheese.
Why would they do that?
Will you let me conclude my point? Can I finish? But he made a point, like, he wrote saying that, please God, don't eat this. Have some decency. Stand up to your Monsanto overlords who are feeding you just whatever they can find at the cheapest possible. And then he got a lot of hate mail saying, how dare you try to tell me, I'm assuming it was a redneck. This guy's a San Francisco columnist, so usually rednecks don't take comment.
It's the only.
How do you tell me
rednecks-
what I'm going to eat for breakfast? How dare you? You shut your mouth. And he goes, well, and he answered, he goes, well, I should tell you what to do if, in fact, because your fat ass eats this, you get sick and you contribute to the crippling healthcare system, then I end up having to help pay for your ass. That's where it does. That's where we all have a shared interest in what we're all eating.
Well, my vote is to not bail these people out of their poor decisions and we'll just let them go by the wayside. That's my vote.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
without getting too...
That's a true libertarian.
I'm a libertarian.
Let them do
I'm
it.
not going to apologize.
And there's a couple of forces at work here. There's people obviously who always
Stupid
get
people. I hate dealing with them.
I hate myself.
who always bear the brunt of it.
Yeah.
People are stupid and uneducated, and but how many things am I uneducated about in life? Like if a theoretical physicist walked in the door and then he was like, "Screw that guy for not being educated." I think we can all probably agree that nutrition is a complicated topic.
Well, I think physics is not even real. It's a made up thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure of it. I went to class. I didn't understand any of it.
I think I actually
He
just
said it was theoretical.
I think I actually just heard the sound of like half of your users signing off right now. just done, But like there's a lot of things that are.
But you could probably draw the line in
I
that.
actually did okay in physics class.
You could draw a line. There's some knowledge sets that if it's essential for your personal well-being, you have some sort of responsibility to at least have some baseline. If it, like, no one's gonna die prematurely because they didn't grasp string theory. But
Sure.
if you don't know how to identify the foods you need for your body to operate, maybe that's a different sort of arrangement.
Yeah,
I think
It's like
hundreds
being
of-
able to drive a car or being able to pay taxes. Like some things you must know.
hundreds of years ago, you didn't have to know about the food that's going in your body because there wasn't a lot of food that was available to you. You ate what was available.
Sure.
And so now we've gotten to where we have way too much choice. And you get what you pay for, and a lot of people are just opting for the cheapest, and not only just the cheapest, but the most convenient. So if I go to the grocery store, the things that are the most convenient products are the ones that I can just open and start eating. Well, that's going to be high glycemic carbohydrates that have been highly processed.
Right.
And not only
It may say organic.
yeah,
Right.
and it might say organic on the package, which will make me feel better about myself. So it's uber
Ignorance is
convenient.
bliss.
It's very cheap and it's very convenient. So people are gonna go via to the path of least resistance or whatever.
Right. And, there's that, and there's the fact that companies make a lot of money by marketing unhealthy foods as healthy to people, for whatever reason.
I think people know better.
Some people
And
do.
I think the majority of people know better, but they like
I don't know. I don't
to
know.
buy
You
the
give
package
people
that says organic, and
giving people credit.
They like to. I really think they know better for the most part. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like the organic Pop-Tart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
There's,
Like,
there's
you gotta know.
nobody that doesn't know that vegetables are good for them.
That's true.
People.
Everybody knows that.
People
if you
are-
put mac and cheese and broccoli in front of somebody and you say which one is better for you, everybody knows.
Everyone
Right.
knows that you're
And if
supposed to
they-
mix them
Wow.
together.
Right. Can I just take the macaroni out and pour the cheese on the broccoli?
I'm taking a broccoli with butter.
Great.
I fuck the
Yeah.
macaroni and cheese.
So, I don't know. I think most people know better. And they're just
Sure.
looking for some way to justify it. And they know that somebody, if they get sick, somebody else is going to take care of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you really put it to them like, hey, if you get sick, we're just going to leave you outside. I think people would straighten up, man.
I agree with
Like, I don't
It's
want
like-
to be in that position.
Right.
Like, one of the reasons I work out is so I can wipe my ass when I'm 8 years old.
Right, for sure. And
I care about the people around me.
It's got things
Right.
All
long
these,
term.
all these people that want collectivism just want people to take care of them because they want to make lousy
If
decisions.
you get sick, can't carry your own weight, we'll take you to the Spartan Cliffs and toss you over.
Thank you.
You'll die honorably.
we'll shoot a flaming arrow into your body. And
It better be way epic, and you better videotape it. That's all I'm saying.
That's what
sure.
YouTube's for.
And so the question really is, if everybody knows this, what's a model for, kind of getting these companies to sell us things that are good for us? How do we get...
Stop subsidizing food that's not good for us.
That's a
that
good
would
point.
be step
That'd be
numero
a good place to
uno.
start.
Yeah, that
I don't.
would be-
I don't.
No,
Blame,
but
I don't
really,
blame the
what can we
companies
do?
At all. I'm
what
all
we-
for
what
selling
could we
people
do?
things that they want.
I'm for selling people things that they want as well. But what I'm not...
You sell something to China that,
Right.
that don't work.
I'm for selling people what they want, but I'm not for selling people telling them it's one thing and then selling them another.
Sure.
And in a way that makes it very difficult. From legally they don't have to disclose it and whatever because of proprietary blend, or selling them things that that they think are one thing and are actually another. I'm really not.
You believe in some
favor of
standard.
that.
There
Right.
should be some standards.
Yeah, and I
some
believe that
guidelines.
the consumers should be able to sue those people for fraud.
You're not putting
know?
on your labels, hey, this has been researched and has found to be effective for this treatment. You're just saying, hey, this is heavy water.
Right.
Have at it.
Yep. Here's what's in it. And the irony is, we tried, in the Chinese market to say like, hey, here are some supplements that have a lot of scientific backing and are kind of new and will really address kind of the pitfalls of an Eastern diet. Because Eastern diets have their problems just like Western diets do.
But now their diet's becoming more and more Western.
That's true.
So
Also,
now they're eating a lot of the bad things in the Eastern diet and a lot of the bad things in the Western diet.
right, they're double screwed.
Yeah, they're now getting fat and sedentary. Everything that comes with middle class Westernized lifestyle with Mickey D's and all that bullshit is now affecting China, Japan, and everybody else.
It's kind of
It's
like
that protein. It's killing them.
It's kind of it's kind of like when we go to Cracker Barrel for lunch and then pay
that
for
damn
dinner.
movie keeps on popping up in every podcast.
It's because I
The
hate it. I hate it that
they were
much.
the sheer ridiculousness of that movie.
Forks over knives.
Yeah, have you
It's
seen
so
it?
correlation,
Yeah.
causation, overload.
Yeah. So that being said, like, I think it would be really interesting for somebody to kind of really attack and approach, how can we change the industry model? Because I think it would be wildly profitable for the first people who did it, which is really where my interests lie. So, if
You want to do that in the United States? I'll team up with you. Let's do it.
all right.
Let's change the world.
I mean, I don't care about changing the world. I just want to make a
You need to get some
ton
more.
of money.
You need to get some more projects going.
Hey, Steve Jobs just wanted to change the world, and guess what? He died a rich man.
Yeah, they didn't really change the world all that much.
The iPod. Come on, man.
I mean, I can listen to music.
We
on a
wouldn't be
portable
here right
device
now if it weren't for
like
Steve
I could
Jobs.
for 30 years before Steve Jobs. Sorry, Steve Jobs. Rest in peace. Love you, buddy.
Too soon.
So he's passing notes in class.
What is going on? We can take that. Oh. Do we want to go any further, or we want to cut it for the night?
Anybody?
Closing thoughts.
I think we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll make
I think
a
this has
closing
been-
thought. I like to ramble. I guess the good message of the day. What?
Nothing.
Fucker.
I thought
we should-
Brad,
we
I
should
thought
keep
Brad
it-
already
keep it
had it.
clean.
Brad was like, what can we do to change the industry? And oh yeah, whatever. Anyway, so for our closing point.
Oh, okay. Well, Brad made his fucking closing point. Can I make my closing point?
Go ahead, Chris.
I think it's just
He
good.
might have something better now.
We talked labeling buzzwords and checking ingredients and considering price and whether it's worth the trade-off in any money you save versus the quality of the product you get. I think it's just a good practice, no matter what you're shopping for, particularly supplements and food. It's probably a good idea to pick things up, compare ingredients, compare price, where did the food come from, what is on the label. If two things say organic and one costs $4 and the other one costs $1.15, why does one cost $1.15? And why does that $1.15 item have 10 or 15 more ingredients? I think these are all incredibly important things to consider every time you make a purchase. Fair point?
I like it.
Thanks, Chris Moore.
You're welcome.
I have got nothing to say now. You
Wisdom.
you took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, that's not hard.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's an a whole.
I was gonna say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Dougie.
Oh, and also, just to close. remember that most things. Remember,
I was about to say something. I thought it was my turn.
just remember that most things you're gonna see, assume they're bullshit and crappy. Search out the minority of things of the highest quality.
Damn it.
Go on, Doug.
I was about to say that too.
No, you weren't.
I was about to say something about being a skeptic, but go ahead.
You can still
Speaking of high quality, I mean, if anyone in the audience needs some powdered deer penis, Brad is definitely your man.
I can help you out.
He's got all the obscure products.
I know
that you
a
would
guy
ever
in
need.
China.
He's got people.
Provide you.
Was that it?
That was it. That was all I had to say. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, to reiterate what Chris said is be a skeptic. People all the time bring me research, or they say they read. They actually don't bring me research. They just say they read something somewhere.
I was about to say,
I read it in the
to
book.
be-
Are you
They're
sure?
like,
it was a book?
I was reading some
Are you
research.
sure it wasn't nothing?
Well, I had to color the first 3 pages, but I think this is pretty credible.
Yeah, I get a lot of people. I was reading some research in the European Journal of Medicine. I'm like, Europe,
Stop there.
whatever. So, Europe is stupid. And it was last time it was some Romanians that were bringing this up. But anyways, so no, I was like, I really encourage people to be skeptics. Like, don't believe anything they see. There's research to support everything. So
Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So anyways, back to my point. No. Yeah, just be a skeptic.
Oh man.
I
We'll edit
got
this part out.
into the third beer, and that was it. No. Anyways, after talking to Brad, before tonight and tonight, I think I'm going to take a little more seriously, like delve more into some supplement companies. I'm going to try and contact maybe some supplement companies and see if we can get those guys interviewed. And we may not be able to do it here. We may have to travel, but this is something I really want to pursue.
future content on Barbell Shrugged. I'm looking
right.
forward to it, guys.
All right, guys. I'm Mike Bledsoe with Doug Larson, Chris Moore,
Goodbye.
and Brad Pope.
Thanks a lot for having
See
me
you
on,
next
guys.
time. Yeah, man.